Welcome back to the Total Athlete vlog. We're back at it again with Project 40, which is my quest to attain a 40-inch vertical jump. Today, we're going to get started with 3 sets of 8 back squat. I'm looking at a top set somewhere around 135 to 140 kilograms. We'll see how that goes. Then we're going to get in some dunks on my low rim over there. Rim right now is currently set to 9 feet with nothing underneath it. So we're going to work up to 8 jumps on every single plant and approach combination. So we've got left leg, right left, left right, and then off vert. So that's going to be 4 sets of 8 jumps basically. And that'll be pretty much it for today's workout. So we're going to get into the squats, try and smash this workout in about maybe 45 minutes. Try and keep it under an hour if possible. But let's get into it. I feel like my girlfriend was using this rack last, so it does seem a little bit low. I'm going to increase it by a single click on each side to make it a little bit more appropriate for my height. So warm-up set complete with the bar. I'm going to jump straight up to 60. So something I have been experimenting with a lot more on back squat recently is changing the amount of extension I have in the upper back. So the way that I originally learned back squat was that you want to puff your chest up as much as you can, get a decent amount of extension through the torso so you can be nice and upright in the bottom position. Then I started binge watching Squat University content. Dr. Aaron Horschig, I love you, man, but I completely disagree with this style of squatting. So I then learned, or at the time I thought was the best thing to do, was when you squat, you're actually meant to try and keep as neutral of a spine as possible. So pack your rib cage down a little bit, and then try and keep your pelvis kind of like level to the floor a little bit like this. And so you end up squatting kind of with almost like a flat back almost, and you're trying to just maintain this all the way down and then stand back up with that. What I found in squatting like that is that, yes, my brace was strong, but every time I came up out of the hole, I would just good morning the squat. My hips would shoot out from underneath me, and I wouldn't be able to maintain the same torso angle all throughout. Then I came across a Seeker Strength video. I think it was Owen from Seeker Strength. The ginger guy with the beard, I can't remember what his actual name is. The Fridge is what I'll call him, the Irish Fridge. I saw a video of him and I came across him saying that if you want to do a true weightlifting style squat, maximize the amount of quad activation that you get from the squat, then it's actually better to sacrifice a little bit of that ribs down bracing in order to have a little bit more extension through your torso so you can keep your chest open, keep your upper back nice and tight, which is the key thing here, the upper back tightness, which you can't really get if you're doing a true like full posterior pelvic brace. Then you're actually able to maintain a much more upright squatting position all the way into the hole and all the way out, and you get a lot more quad activation. And it becomes a little bit less of a posterior chain dominant movement, and you can get a lot more of quad activation, which is very important for me. Given my leverages, I've got incredibly short tibias, relatively long femurs, and a very long torso in comparison to other people who are my height. So if I want to dunk a basketball, have stronger quads, reduce knee pain, which I've been dealing with, then I need to have a much more open chest, tight upper back squatting position. And also the bar placement is a key thing as well. So I'll just show you on this set how I set that up. Don't know if the camera angle is going to work super well, but I'll change camera angles on the next set when I go up to 100 as well. So this is 80. I'm getting the bar set as low as possible while still being above the spine of my scapula. So that's there. This is known as the middle bar squat technique. I'm unracking the bar and then getting my feet set, and I'm keeping my chest open. So ordinarily I would have done it like this. I'm trying to brace nice and hard like this. And I'm trying to squat down. And then every time if the squat was too heavy, I would always come forward out of the hole like this. But now, when I do the middle bar, sacrifice a little bit of bracing, upper back tightness, and keep the chest open, I'm able to squat like this. Be a lot more upright out of the hole. And that feels a lot more athletic and a lot more controlled with speed still, kind of like a weightlifting squat. So that's how I'm squatting right now. Hopefully, maybe if you're struggling with the same thing, similar leverage issues, similar lack of quad activation when you squat, try switching up the style to the one I just showed you. Another thing that I also entirely forgot to mention is wearing a decent pair of weightlifting shoes with a decent amount of heel elevation. These are Reebok Legacy Lifter 2s. They've got a really good amount of heel elevation and also a relatively wide toe box, which is perfect for my feet. I've got relatively wide feet. And also in combination with long femurs, it just means that I have to have a lot more range of motion to get into the bottom of that squat position. And so having the elevation of the heel enables me to get further into that position without as much hip mobility and without as much ankle mobility. It basically, when you add on that extra, inch of heel elevation, it lengthens the effective length of your tibia by about an inch, which is what I need to squat. So, I'm gonna get into my next set of 8. This is gonna be 100 kilograms. Then I'm gonna go 120 and then 140 and see how we're feeling. Last warm-up set of 8 with 120. This should move okay. This is going to dictate whether I jump to 135 or 140. I got the 10s out to add on either side to jump up to 140 already from when I did my set of 100 just now. So we'll do a set of 8 with 120, see how it feels, see how it moves, and then we'll make a educated decision after that. Yep, light work. That was fine. That moved well enough for me to feel like I can move to 140 quite easily for 3 sets. So we'll jump it up, have a little bit of rest, and then get into that first working set. Nice. I would say maybe an RPE 8 for that set. I probably had 2 more reps left in the tank there, at most. Maybe 3 if I pushed it. I'd say that's perfect weight for today's session. Two more. Nice. Another piece of anecdotal squat wisdom that I've found over the last few months of like really pushing squats a little bit more. I mean, this used to be like a 5 RM for me, and now I'm hitting it for 8. I'm working sets at like an RP 8. And also training for vertical jump as well, is that squats are actually really good for improving ankle stiffness. Because think about it, what are the actual working muscles in a squat? Obviously the quads, obviously the glutes, obviously the posterior chain, all the way up the backside of the body. But you have a significant amount of ankle flexion, like dorsiflexion, when you go into the bottom of a squat. And yes, you're meant to be keeping your heels on the floor. But in order to maintain stability at the ankle joint, or just to maintain tension through the ankle, there is going to be some calf activation. There's going to be some soleus activation when you get into the bottom of that squat, especially if you're trying to grip the ground with your toes. You're trying to like really pull the ground, almost like you're trying to pull up a carpet with your toes. You get that little bit of, I don't know what it's called, toe flexion. Almost trying to curl your toes a little bit as you're pushing through the squat. So I definitely feel it in my calves when I'm squatting, especially like relatively heavier squats. And I've noticed in terms of my jumping, it's definitely improved my ankle stability and stiffness in those deeper ranges of motion. Same thing with sprinting as well. As you accelerate, your ankle is getting into a relatively deep range of motion. So when you're pressing with your feet, gripping the ground with your toes in a squat, I could see how that would offer a general strength adaptation to the soleus muscle with a significant amount of loading as you're pushing through your toes on a sprint as well. At least that's my anecdotal experience. I don't know if there's any actual scientific evidence to back that up, any optimal bro science to prove that that's the case, but just anecdotally, I found that ankle stiffness has improved from doing heavier squats, and I think it has translated relatively well into my acceleration sprints and some of my jumps as well. One more. Now I can probably hear you asking, why on earth are you doing squats before jumps? Surely you want to do the most explosive, most neurally demanding exercise first, most technically demanding exercise as well first, because when you do squats, your nervous system is going to get potentiated to firing a bit slower before you do jumps. And that's all correct. Primary reason I'm doing the squats first is because I get the potentiation in my quads and it makes my knee feel a lot better going into the jumps, to have a nice pump in my quad versus going from cold, warming up with jumps, doing some dunks, and then going into the squats. Prefer doing the squats first because I'm not gonna lie, 3 sets of 8 with an RP 8 to 9, it's objectively harder in terms of just intensity than doing the dunks. And because I'm experiencing patellar tendonitis at the moment, one of the main things that's been plaguing me on my journey to a 40-inch vertical, the patellar tendonitis, or it's basically tendinopathy at this point, it doesn't respond too well with warming up with high intensity jumps and then going into squats. But what I have found, and Coach Liam has also found, is that when we program the squats in first, my knee does not plague me when I'm doing the jumps. And even after the session, the day after, my knee feels fine when I do the squats first versus when I do the jumps first. Anecdotal evidence, of course, but I can only explain to you my personal direct experience with my knee pain, and this has been working well for me. So we'll get into it. Before we get into the jumps, we've got a set of quarter squats until RPE 7 or 8 with 155. Quarter squat meaning like, everyone has different definitions of quarter squat. Some people think that it's like a lot deeper than it really is. I would say this is kind of like closer to a half squat for a lot of people. I'm talking literally down to here, popping back up, down to here, popping back up. And the main cue for this is I'm trying to cue as vertical of a torso as possible and as much knee over toe action as possible, while still being able to maintain, obviously, 155 kilos in that middle bar, high bar back squat position. RPE 7 with this weight in quarter squats is probably going to be somewhere around 10 to 12 reps. I'm going to do them as slowly and as controlled as possible, and then it's a 15-second ISO hold in that quarter squat position. Knees all the way over the toes. Oh, that probably wasn't fully 15 seconds, but it was definitely more than 10. Little tidbit of information here. That rim right there is set to 9 feet tall. The trouble with this hoop is that it is adjustable, but to adjust it, you have to take the whole backboard off and move it up to the next setting, which is in 6-inch increments. So you can either have this rim at 8'6", 9 foot, 9'6", or 10 feet, nothing in between. So where I've been programmed to do 9'4" today, one of the easiest ways to do that, with my tape measure here, you'll see this. I'm gonna put 2 of these bumper plates. Granted, this will make it a little bit more than 9'4". You can see this bumper plate is a little bit more than 4 inches. I'm gonna put this bumper plate at the front, underneath the front of the rim. Then I'm gonna put that one underneath the back of the rim. I'm gonna move the rim out this way a tiny bit so I've got some more space to jump, and then we'll get into those dunks. I'm also blessed to have enough space in my parking garage right now. I'm literally in the parking garage for my apartment building to be doing dunks like this, so I'm very grateful, very lucky, very blessed to have the opportunity to train dunks in my own personal space, with a rim that's adjustable as well, so I'm very lucky to have that. So one thing that's come into my consciousness a lot more in the last few weeks is, if you're more grateful for the things that you have in your life, and if you are operating underneath the emotion or the feeling of gratitude, there is a lot less space for negativity in your mind. If you're just grateful, even some of the most simple things in your life, like the fact that you have the opportunity to train to exhaustion in your own first world country, you have the opportunity to eat food until your belly is full in a first world country, presuming you're watching this in a first world country. It's very small things like this that we do often take for granted that billions of people around the world don't even have the opportunity to do. And it's quite counterintuitive and also a little bit ironic that people in the first world are suffering from high rates of suicide, mental health illness, depression, anxiety, when, if we're thinking about it, these people should have every reason to be happy and grateful. But unless it's a conscious practice that you make yourself do every day, and you actually are trying to be consciously grateful for all the things that you have, then it is very easy to spiral into negativity, because we have too much comfort in the Western world. We have too much convenience and ease of life in the Western world, such that our minds aren't occupied with the daily activities that we need to do to survive. We have so much free time and leisure time for the mind to just wander aimlessly. And I think that's what leads us to spiral into anxiety and depression so much. But when we zoom out and look at it, we shouldn't have any reason to be so. But it's the people who, living in the third world, who are just fighting to get enough calories to survive, who maybe do just have the bare essentials of somewhere safe to sleep at night, somewhere, some kind of shelter to be warm, some food under their nose, and also some water. When they have that, they're so damn grateful for it, and they are generally, I would say, happier than a lot of people in the first world are. Not all of them, obviously. Obviously, if you have no food and you're struggling to survive, you haven't got all of your basic needs met, then yes, you are going to be, I would argue, more objectively unhappy. But There is definitely a case to be made that people in poor countries who do have the bare minimum needed to survive are happier than people in the Western world. But hey, maybe I'm just ranting. Perhaps I'm just a privileged white guy from Western world talking absolute nonsense. But I think that's something that is at least a piece of value that you can get from this video. Just try and be more grateful for the things you have in your life, purely for the sake of, if you are grateful, there's just less space for negativity in your life. There's less space to be depressed, anxious, and annoyed about the things that you don't have, because you're occupying so much of your consciousness and your mental space with great gratitude for what you do have. So first things first, just going to double check that the rim is actually 9'4". As you can see here, or maybe you can't see it, but the rim is very slightly bent down at the front. That should account for the fact that the plates are slightly above 4 inches. So let's measure it. I'm going to try my best to get the tape measure to stay put on the rim, which I always struggle with when measuring the rim. Hopefully that stays still. Just going to let that tape measure drop down very carefully. And we'll get it onto the floor, hopefully without moving it. Please stay still. So we're looking at about exactly 9'4". It was slightly below 9'4". If I can pull the front of the rim a little bit more forwards onto the front of that plate and just get that rim to go up a little bit, maybe with the ball, the front of the rim should be approximately exactly 9'4". Anyway, so first set of dunks are going to be left leg. I've been historically pretty bad at jumping off my left leg. I'm not sure how well these dunks are going to go off the left leg today. I'm going to do a few warm-up jumps, see how close we're getting to dunking on the rim, and then we'll just get into some basic left leg approaches. Trying to focus on with my jumps, my approaches, especially off the left leg, is I'm trying to curve my approach in to the right. So I'm curving in like this. My approach to the rim is like this. And then I'm trying to step across myself with that jumping leg so I can get that nice loading through the IT band and the glute to come up and finish at the rim like this. Damn, that one definitely should have gone in. I think I'm trying to dunk it too hard, so just gonna get one where I do just come in a little bit lighter and just try and flush it. Much better. There we go. Yeah, that one was much better, much better. Fuck. I feel like I would have made all of these dunks so far if I just tried to dunk it a bit softer. The last like 2-3 jumps, I'm gonna do these off the lob because then I don't have to worry about swinging the ball through. I'm gonna throw it here, come in, and then see if I can't just get a make with either one hand or a two-hander. All right, that was just a test of lob. I think I can make it off of that height. Ooh, not quite. Just about made that one. As you can tell, I'm not super experienced with throwing lobs myself, so definitely need a bit of practice on that one. Get that rim out. Thank you. I'll take that. All right, we'll call it quits there for left leg. We'll now get into my second best plant approach mechanics, which is going to be a right-left, as opposed to left-right, which is my best one. We're going to do that one second to last. So this one is basically just going to be like a 2 or 3 step approach, coming in, bam, maybe a little bit of dribble in there, making sure that when I block step, I'm turning as much as I can through there to create as much great braking forces through the side of my leg as we can to translate as much of that horizontal momentum into vertical impulse. So I'm going to try this one from a bunch of different approach angles because I know I'm a little bit more confident with this one. I'll do the easiest one first, coming in from the right side and then turning, bam, bam, into a right-handed dunk. We'll try that one again real quick. Oh, that was so close. There we go. We will finish up 3 more attempts. I'm gonna do some tomahawk. Trying to actually back scratch here before we get a strong finish on the rim. Best approach angle for this is probably going to be coming in from the right, because if I'm curving in this way, then I can finish on the front of the rim here like this. That's another thing with dunking, is that it is a skill, and if you can jump really high, it's very useful, but you have to have the technique in terms of the approaches and where you're trying to plan to finish the dunk on every single rep. So all things that need to be considered. Yes, go. Not bad. I would take that. Right, left approach, windmill on 9-4, baby. Let's fucking go. Was not the most extended swing on that one. It was kind of like a baby windmill, but I'll take it. The fact that that's moving, the fact that I'm able to do that on 9-4 says a lot that I've improved my jumping technique recently as well. As just my general jump height. I used to be able to barely do this on 9 foot, so that's definitely big progress. I kind of just want to do it over and over again because it's just so much fun. So I'm going to do another one. That doesn't count. There we go. I am not gonna lie, I'm gonna have to watch that back, but I was much higher than I thought I could be on that one. Like, I felt like my head was, at least, my eyes felt like they were at least in line with the middle of the red netting, maybe a little bit high. I'm gonna try one more, a little bit of rest, and then I'm just gonna do my off-foot dunks and call it there for the day. Easy, 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 easy. Lost the ball, not enough upswing with that. Let's try that again. Oh yeah. Let's go. Let's fucking go. That was a nice face finish. All right, guys, we're gonna leave it there. Hopefully you got some value out of watching this, some training tidbits, and also some entertainment to eat your food to. If you aren't subscribed to the channel already, please subscribe. Lots more workout like this coming. Please like and follow along with the journey for me to get 40-inch vertical. If any of you are interested in athletic coaching, if you want to sprint faster, you want to jump higher, you want to lift heavier, just become a more well-rounded, explosive athlete, then check the link in the description, and then you can apply to work one-on-one with me with coaching. Or you can also check the other links in the description for just programs which aren't obviously one-to-one coaching, but they are some of the best damn programs in the game at making you into a more generally athletic and explosive human being. Peace. I'll catch you in the next one.